Good evening, Dracut. Tonight is Wednesday night, and it's 7 o'clock, so it's What's Happening Dracut. I'm your lead host tonight, Gordy Scott. John Zimini's he's on assignment, I guess we could say, so he's not going to be here tonight. So with me tonight, I have a special guest with his own show here on Dracut Access TV. But first of all, I'm going to introduce my co-host and good friend, Phil Thibault.
Good evening. Glad to be here, and thank you. And we're expecting John on our next show.
Yes. And our special co-host for tonight is a man that needs no introduction. Very popular TV show here, rising star here at Dracut Access TV, Richard Silvio. Richard Silvio, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Gordy. Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here. We're going to get into some nice topics tonight, so I'm looking forward to it. Richard,
can you quickly tell us about your other show that you have?
Yeah, no problem. So myself and my friend Joey Bigos, we host the Bigos Silvio Show, which is a youth political talk show. We don't air live, but we do it every other Friday, and we upload it to our YouTube channel, and it's on TV during the week. We get into some pretty interesting topics, so it's a lot of fun.
Make sure you check that out. I think it's a great show. I watch it myself, and I think you guys do a great job. So having said that, welcome to the show, and let's turn it over now to our weatherman from Mill City Weather, Sean Kelly.
Hi guys, here's the forecast for tonight. It is going to be clear with low temps in the low 20s tonight. 23 degrees for the Merrimack Valley. Some locations it may even be in the upper teens tonight as we head through the night. On Thursday we're going to warm it up just a bit. Sunny, temps just around 40 degrees, a little bit warmer than that, just north of 495 going into parts of southern New Hampshire and into the Merrimack Valley. But I think for the low, should be around 40 degrees. As we enter Thursday night, we're going to drop it down to about 20 degrees, becoming clear. Here is a look at the exclusive 8-day forecast. Thursday, Friday, very sunny. As we start to head into the weekend, there is a chance that we could get maybe a few snow flurries as we head into Sunday evening and into early Monday. Next week right now, it does look a little bit unsettled as we have temps seasonable for this time of year. And that's the forecast for everyone. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Sean. Well, Phil, looks like it's going to be a little colder than it has been in the past few weeks.
Well, it's seasonable, so that I guess we should expect it.
Richard, have you been shoveling out there the couple big storms that we had?
Yeah. I'd rather not, especially with online school. It's hard to get up at 4 o'clock, go shovel, sleep for 25 minutes, get up and get ready for school. But at least you don't have to go in the building, so. It's nice.
How's school been going, by the way?
Honestly, I'm not very favorable of the whole hybrid system. I understand the teachers are trying their best, to make it as comfortable as possible for both them and us. But, I'm really not a big fan. A lot of my classes, people don't even show up. We've had a real big problem with attendance. People might don't show up once or twice a week, but they still get the work in, so, because the due dates tend to be a little skewed. So, I don't know. It's all over the place. It's nuts. It's nuts. I'd much rather be in person.
That's good. So maybe on a future show you can do a more in-depth report on the education that's happening.
Maybe you'll be the new manager of the show. You got some really good ideas.
So since this is the first show for us for 2021, there's a lot of stuff going on nationally. As we know, most people have been watching the news around the country, what's happening at the Capitol. We're going to get to that a little later in the show. We don't want to lead with that and then go downhill, so we're going to... But what I did is I put together a video so we can actually look back and reflect. There wasn't a lot of good news back in 2020, but I did put together a short video of a lot of the major highlights, what happened in Dracut over the past year. So let's take a look at that. Nate, if you can put this up on the screen, we'll play this for the folks. Right, and so that's our video. Kind of depressing. I tried to put some, a little bit spicier music in there so you wouldn't.
Yeah, geez, that was a quick year in review.
That last one there wasn't very closing up.
Well, it is good news and bad news depending on how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a COVID report for tonight, but we're still at 3 deaths for 2020. So I guess how we hit that early in the year, so we didn't really get any more deaths the last 7 or 8 months of the year. So that, I guess you can look at as good news. With that said, now that we're all happy and in a good mood, so we want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the town. One of the big news, one of the big things out there that's in the news is about the Dracut Water Supply District. And there's an article that was posted. A lot of people don't know about this. So a couple years ago, Paul Morin came on another show. And he talked about the chemicals that were in some of the well water here in Dracut.
Bill Morin.
Bill Morin, yeah. Sorry, apologize. Yep. Bill Morin came on, talked about that, and they had to shut down wells for a couple days and do some testing, and they resolved that problem. But with all the new building that's happening here in Dracut and Tingsboro, the Dracut Water Supply is running low on water supply. So they're looking at getting some more water supply, and to do that, they need to get a piece of property that's located in Tingsboro. It's a home owned by Dan Bollinger. He owns 166 Frost Road in Tingsboro. So there's been back and forth about that property. So Dan wants $900,000. Dracut wants to pay them $300,000 for it. So it's been kind of back and forth.
The Dracut Water Supply District.
Dracut Water Supply District. Sorry, not the town of Dracut.
Because they are
separate
distinct
entities.
Municipal entities.
Correct. So it's been going back and forth. So the Tingsboro Selectmen got involved. They urged for them to go through negotiations. So 2 more appraisals were done on the home. So it got it close to $400,000, up from under $300,000 they wanted to pay. But Mr. Bollinger didn't want to accept that because he's got a couple of buildings on his property that he thinks is a little bit more valuable. So they kind of arrived at a settlement around $500,000, just under $500,000. And I don't know what's happened since then, but it looks like that those negotiations are falling through. Mm-hmm. So it may be that the Dracut Water Supply is looking to take this house over by eminent domain. So based on that information, Phil, what do you think is the next step here?
Well, eminent domain is always an option that's available to a municipality. So I suppose if we liken it to something that happened similar in Dracut when the new town hall was built, there was a residential property behind town hall, and they were I believe they may have been paid more than the assessed value of the property, but there are provisions that allow a municipality or a municipal entity to pay more than the assessed value if it has special locations and things like that.
He has some land with it, a barn that's also on the property.
So when the town acquired the house behind town hall, it met some of those special conditions that you couldn't buy another property somewhere else because it's not going to help you build town hall.
Right.
So there are special conditions. This could be very much a similar item because this property is on one of the well fields. It abuts one of the well fields. So now they're trying to site most of the building, I think, in the well field, but it still needs to be accessed through this property. So yeah, it now really becomes a matter of negotiation of, how much is the assessed value for the residential use? How much would the assessed value be for a municipal use? And
now, do you think Bollinger has a leg to stand on? What would it stop him from just letting them take it by eminent domain? Do you think he's going to get the same amount as he would get? Because if they take it over by eminent domain, it still means they have to pay him some amount of money, right?
Correct. So if they go the route of taking it by eminent domain, I think it typically proves out that that the owner of the property gets even far more than what's being promised to begin with. So they have the assessed value. Dracut Water Supply has the assessed value. So they would essentially, if taking it by eminent domain, pay him the assessed value. And then it's up to the owner of the property to say, that's an inequity to me, and then take him to court. And then it essentially becomes up to a judge to assess what the true value of the property is. Now, the value to Dracut Water is essentially enormous, because this is where they want to put their water treatment plant. So you can imagine what the value would be.
To them is
Right.
So Richard, I know you studied this a little bit. What are your thoughts on this? And if you were Mr. Bollinger, what would you do?
Well, usually I wouldn't be a big fan of eminent domain, but in this particular instance, I found it very interesting because, I think they're offering him a generous amount, compared to the property and what it really offers. And to my knowledge, they even came to an agreement on October 30th, in the town, or the water supply that is, even offered to help him clear out some property on his land. So I think the town's been more than reasonable, and he just has not been cooperating. So frankly, if I was him, I'd just take the deal before they give you however amount, that they deem fit. So I don't know. I honestly think he's quite a fool for not taking the deal.
So, well, we'll see how that plays out in the next few months, I guess.
Yeah, so I know that the water supply district is really up against, if you want to call it the 8-ball, because the chemical that you'd mentioned, manganese, is in the water.
Manganese, right, yep.
And it's in a high concentration, higher than the EPA permits, so they're looking for this water treatment plant to remove that manganese. Hopefully, not only removing the manganese, but I hope they stop putting fluoride in the water too.
And I have seen on Facebook a lot of people, because they do flush the water systems here in Dracut. I don't know how frequently they do it, but I do see a lot of people posting, and it's actually happened at my house. You turn the water on, you'll get brown water for several minutes actually, and then you just let it run and it clears out. But I know there has been a lot of people complaining. Have you guys seen that in your homes at all? The brown water or anything?
I haven't. No, I have not seen any brown water, luckily. So.
Yeah, so usually if it's in the neighborhood and they're doing the hydrant flushing, as they refer to it, they tell you what streets they're doing the hydrant flushing on. And typically if you have a hot water tank, don't run hot water, because the rust will settle in the tank.
Right, that's where it really gets.
That's where it really gets. But logistically, once a year, the residents of the town should be flushing their hot water tank to get rid of all that sludge.
Right.
But yeah, when it's in the neighborhood, I usually alert the family, hey, they're going to be flushing the hydrants these days. So, and I think they typically only do it early in the morning. I'm not sure if they do
like
it
9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. I noticed it.
Which is interesting. Andover, I believe, flushes at night. So the likelihood of people actually drawing water is very small.
Or if you're taking a shower at night, you're going to get all that brown water on.
But I think they do it, when I say overnight, I think they probably start it at like midnight and go to early morning, trying to avoid having this water for the people and producing the silt and rust and stuff.
All right, so the next topic we have on the agenda tonight is the town elections. So I don't know who's up and who's running. Phil, you have any inside information for us on that?
As far as the selectmen, it's the single seat, and that's currently held by Joe DeRocco. I've heard a number of times in previous years that he was thinking about not running, so who knows?
Retiring, riding off into the sunset?
But I can't imagine him not running this year.
Have you heard any rumors of any of the previous people that ran last year going to run again?
I have not.
You think we'll see a return of John Joyce?
Well, you would know more about that than I would.
Richard, do you have any insight to the selectmen's race coming up this next year?
Town elections aren't really my cup of tea that much, but I will say that I definitely think DeRocco needs to get out of the game. And if nobody runs again, not just for his personality, which I'm not a big fan of anyways, but if he runs uncontested, I really don't think that's fair for our democracy. I think we should at least have one candidate running against him, whoever it may be.
So I guess we'll have to stay tuned.
Yeah. I'm not sure if town moderator is up this year, to be honest.
I think it is. I think it is. So
that's
George Milliard.
Milliard.
I don't know if I would want to run for that, but
It's actually a fairly powerful seat.
it is. But it's kind of thankless.
It is very. So you run the annual town meeting and the fall town meeting. Obviously, you're paid $550 as a stipend for the year.
But I think George does a good job.
He does a
in the
fairly good
beginning, I
job.
think it was a little shaky. But
I would have to admit it's not as tight of a meeting as typical. I mean, there are some people who
was it Leo that were?
Leo Gaudette followed town meeting times, which is the rules that our town meeting is run under. Not so much Robert's Rules of Order, but town meeting times. So Leo Gaudette was very much true and fast to those. I mean, he.
But you almost need to be, I think, sometimes.
You can be. George probably fits more in my style as I have been as a chairman on committees where, you let things go. Let's see what develops. Let people talk. And as long as everybody's playing somewhat nice and not drawing blood, then
Right.
you let things go and you try to let people have a freedom of speech. George is pretty good.
Yeah, I think he's gotten better over the years.
But town moderator also appoints a number of positions, a lot of important
Is
positions.
it finance
in town.
committee?
Finance committee. I think government rules and I'm not sure. Government rules and regulations, I believe they do, and so they review essentially government rules and regulations that are passed at town meeting or being brought to town meeting. Permanent building committee, so a lot of the committee that oversees a lot of the building in town. So currently they're doing the fire station, but they've done the town hall, and I believe there may be one other position, one other committee that they appoint to. But it's a lot of positions that deal with either the government of the town or finances in the town, and that is really to keep both the Board of Selectmen and the town manager independent of the finances. So you have these checks and balances. So it's a very important position, very powerful, that a lot of people kind of take it as a second thought.
So one thing I did want to mention, which is kind of late now because it looks like all the signups are full, but Dracut is offering a COVID-19 free testing site at Four Oaks Country Club tomorrow between 9:30 and 4. Unfortunately, if you haven't already signed up, it's now too late because it is full. But I did want to mention that the town is doing something to get some testing out there. So for those people that need to get testing, it's free. So those have signed up and taken advantage of that.
So how many tests were being offered? Do you know?
It doesn't actually say on here. There are different time slots. They go from 9:30 to 10 every half an hour. And I don't know how many. I think it's 10 per half an hour period, so over 100 tests.
Well, I thought it was even more than that.
It might be. It doesn't say here on the
I thought it was a
site.
fairly significant number. But I mean, that's great. That was being sponsored, I believe, through Trinity.
Trinity Ambulance, emergency services.
Do we know what type of test they were? Were they the instant one or the 3-day one?
It says they're using an anterior nasal collection method.
So they're tickling the back of your skull
Yes.
with a swab.
The rather unpopular one.
And it doesn't. And it says it will take you 3 days. 3 days to receive the results. So
the more accurate version of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I just gave blood. The Red Cross was having a drive. The Council on Aging was sponsoring a drive, and they had it at Harmony Hall. And so I went to Harmony Hall, did my power reds where they take out the red blood cells and they put the plasma back in you. But one of the benefits of that is they'll send you back notification if they find COVID antibodies.
Oh, great. So it's almost like a free antibody test.
Yeah, it's a free antibody test that it only cost me a quart.
So speaking of that, my wife and son have been vaccinated. So next week they're getting their second dose. So they both work at Old General Hospital. And my wife actually got the Pfizer test and my son got the Moderna test. So that'll be interesting to see if one works better than the other.
Did they compare notes on?
Yeah, they haven't had any ill effects. No, no redness, no dizziness, no feeling sick. So far so good. But they do say the second one, the booster shot, is that's when most people, the majority of people, did have side effects from it. So we'll see. I'll report on our next show. I'll let you guys know how they're progressing. So that's good. That's good that the vaccines are coming out. So that takes us to our next segment, Phil.
Our next segment
is the 2020 GAF Awards.
So it's one of my favorite shows used to be the McLaughlin Group. And at the beginning of the year, they always had their award show. And so I thought that might be something nice to kind of resurrect with us. And so there are a number of topics. I actually have a few topics here. I believe the list was given to you, so I'm not sure if you had the opportunity to even think about it. So our first topic, biggest story of 2020. What do you think is, what's your pick for the
Let's go to Richard first.
biggest news story of 2020?
I was afraid you were going to go to me first. The biggest story of 2020, I hate to be lame, but I'm going to have to say COVID. Maybe more specifically the vaccine. I think that's definitely a big breakthrough, and I think that might have been the shining beacon of the year. So I'm going to give it to the vaccine.
Excellent. What do you think?
I agree. I think the vaccine is the huge breakthrough. I side on the side. I don't think that COVID doesn't exist, but obviously I think the media
absolutely
goes overboard on the severity of the virus. The virus is real. To me, it's similar to the flu. It's worse than the flu, but we all get by. We get most of the people, again, as we said and you saw in the video, 3 people died in Dracut. So it's not the end of the world. It's not, we're not going to turn into zombies and all this other stuff. But I do think for peace of mind that the vaccine and having that come out as quickly as it did from the time of inception to the time of actually rolling it out and getting approvals, I think that was one of the biggest stories of 2020. Phil?
I think the biggest story of 2020 was defund the police movement.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Because that has far-reaching consequences that a lot of people really don't think about. We have now had legislation that have put a lot of scrutiny to the police and have really made the police pull themselves back to say, is this something we want to step into? And I think that...
and you can't really blame them.
No, you can't, because they're family people too, and they want to go home. And at the end of the day, and do I want to put myself in a position that jeopardizes both my career and my life and my family? Because as you know, some of these police officers have been doxxed with their addresses blasted, and now we have legislation that was passed in most states, I think. Certainly in Massachusetts, it was recently passed, this police reform. Does it go overboard? Certainly there are always items that you can do to improve an organization. But I'm not sure if this whole thing was done thoughtfully. It was done as a reaction. And as a reaction, I don't think you ever really get anything good out of it.
All right, what's the next?
Next one, most underrated story of 2020.
Whoa, most underrated.
And that could be national, it could be local, but Gordy, what do you think was the most underrated?
I'll go first on this one. The most underrated story was the Joe DeRocco attacking Dracut Access TV. To me, was the most underrated story, just because he's attacking our First Amendment rights, and I think. You've been here with me every episode now, Phil. I don't think we've talked negatively about anyone. No. So I think there's a specific person that maybe Mr. DeRocco was going after that is not on the show with us tonight, or is normally on the show. There may be another person that I think he was personally attacking that does do a lot of that. So hopefully this show that people watch, you won't see a lot of that coming from out of our mouth. So I think that was the one that I would pick.
Okay. What do you think? Most underrated story of 2020.
I'll stick locally like Gordy, and I'm going to say the police chief. I think that really blew me away, that Bartlett's coming back. I think that's a real I don't know what to think of it, frankly. It blew me away, and I think it's not getting as much light as it really should. Phil?
Interesting. My thought was development around Dracut. We have the Rourke Bridge project that's getting well
yeah?
underway.
Yep.
We have Market Basket that opened up on Pawtucket.
Beautiful place.
Pawtucket Boulevard. I mean, again, Rourke Bridge, Market Basket on Pawtucket Boulevard provide a lot of service for Dracut. We also have the Amazon warehouse coming to Hudson, New Hampshire.
Really? I didn't hear about that one.
So they're looking at Green Meadow Golf Course.
Really?
And they're looking at putting 2 million square feet of warehouse there. And
That'd be a lot
That
of
could be
jobs.
employing several tens of thousands of people.
A lot of traffic as well.
A lot of
Has
traffic.
that been finalized, Phil? Do you know? or-
No, I know they're in the discussion planning phases.
That
of
would
it.
be great. I mean, that would be a huge
So,
boost for the
that's
economy around this
Big
area.
boost for the economy in Dracut. Certainly, I know a lot of people in Nashua and the surrounding neighborhood around Green Meadow are up in arms about it because, again,
yeah.
it's a residential area.
Right, you're going to have a lot of trucks back and
So,
forth.
Oh, goodness.
but as you know,
Cars.
that location provides them access to Route 3
You're
very
right there.
quickly.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, the back end of Green Meadow it abuts the bridge going over the river. So they could actually exit that way and get right onto Route 3 without going through any of the neighborhoods. So, I mean...
In this time of COVID, too, I mean, Amazon is just... It's
So, I mean,
ridiculous.
you know, there are a number of big items that have a large economic impact for Dracut that really have just been kind of meandering around, nothing
Yeah.
to see here.
Yeah.
And I think they really do deserve a lot more attention, certainly in the case of like Amazon, attention from our town leaders, and we should be, getting into those discussions as early as we can.
Right. What's our next topic, Phil?
Most overrated story of 2020.
You can go first.
No, I'm going to go to Rich first.
You know, I know I said the vaccine.
What was talked about that didn't need to be talked about?
You know what? I'm not saying it didn't need to be talked about, but honestly, COVID. I think COVID was really kind of overdrawn, especially in the past few months where things have somewhat been getting under control. That's very debatable, but I think COVID, was in the news far too much this year. So a lot of people will disagree with me, but
but I think for the very points you're saying, it's interesting that you've talked about it too much. Now
Right.
you've just gone overboard. You're overrating it, right? Gordy.
So I would say, and I'm going to probably get a lot of slack for this, saying this, is I think the Black Lives Matter movement was the most overrated story. Now, the reason I say that is because I think a lot of the people in that organization think that a majority of the United States are hateful people, are racist. But if that was true, how would we have a black president, so many black senators, so many non-Caucasian people that are in lines of government, governors, senators, House of Representatives, and we had a president for 8 years. So if this country was so prejudiced, I don't think anyone would have elected an African-American president. So I understand that there were things that happened with the police officers, that, when the police officer put his knee on his neck, that shouldn't have happened. Things happen like that, unfortunate incidents happen like that. But I don't think that, as you said, one of your topics was the police, defund the police.
Defund the
I think that
police
led
is-
to that, and unfortunately, I think that was just overdone because we've moved on. I think most people, a lot of people I know, I've never heard anyone say anything in a bad array towards a non-Caucasian person. So I just think that whole movement has been overrated. I'll
frankly,
probably get a lot of slack for that, but I do believe that.
Well, maybe we can get slack from our audience. 978-957-4243. Certainly.
what have you done, Phil?
Call in if you'd like to chime in on some of these stories or awards.
And John just, real quick, John just wrote to me and said, am I the person that... No, John is not the person that attacks people. So you, by You can tell if it's not myself, Phil, or John, there's another person that was on another show, so you know who that person would be.
So my most overrated story for 2020, all of the hullabaloo at DATV.
Yes.
Talk about, it must have been a slow news day. Here's a well-organization, provides a great service to the town of Dracut, at good values, and will do anything for the town that they can. And then because of some political showmanship, these start attacking the organization. I think that was just way overrated. And then the Lowell Sun piles in on it.
Right.
And they put stories like, well, we know that they're a private organization, but if they weren't, they'd be in trouble. It's like, really? I mean, talk about overrated.
And the Lowell Sun's been going downhill for years, though, anyway, so it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
And I just want to jump in on that because these selectmen don't understand that the people that watch them on TV, all of their meetings are broadcast with Dracut Access TV. I can't say enough about the folks that work here. And the parents this year that I'll be starting basketball next week, the parents that can't go to the games because of the COVID restrictions, aren't they going to love it when Dracut Access TV is there to broadcast the game and they can watch their son or daughter play a sport that they love?
Absolutely.
So, that's worth just to have the opportunity to watch my son play basketball and actually be there. But right now, if he was playing, I couldn't be there, and to be able to watch that on TV, that's worth a lot. So can't say enough about the folks here at Dracut Access TV, and for them to get attacked, I just think is just wrong.
Yep. Okay, now we get into some awards. Who do you think was the biggest political winner of 2020?
Biggest political winner.
Or you can go again national, or you can go stay local.
You know what, Gordy, would you like to take this one first while I think for a second?
Well, I obviously think it's Kamala Harris. And the reason I say that is because I think when Joe Biden gets in, they passed this little thing called the 26th Amendment, and which means if the House of Representatives and Congress or in the Senate think that the president is unable to perform his duties, they can remove him from his duties. And they said, don't worry, this is already in the Constitution. We're just clarifying the wording around that. So I think they have a plan, and I think they have a plan to remove Joe Biden within, they'll give him at least 6 months, I think.
That's very generous.
Of being the president, and I think they're going to show some decline, and they're going to have him removed and put Kamala in there. That's my prediction for 2021. So we'll see how that comes.
And that's interesting. And to be honest, I think that ties into some of the discussion we'll have later on about what's happening over in Washington.
Yes,
because I think it does tie into that to some degree. What do you think, Rich?
I took a few minutes, thought about it, collected my thoughts, and honestly, I think Tulsi Gabbard, I really do think, she may have not been in the news, frankly, at all this year, but I think she's really stepped away from her party and hasn't really been too afraid to say, what she thinks if it doesn't necessarily agree with party lines. I definitely think she's more of a classic Democrat, so I'm gonna give it to her this year. I'm gonna give it to her.
Yeah, to be honest, I saw her recently on a show, and she was talking about some of the stuff that was going on with the Electoral College and such, and she sounded very reasonable. I mean, it's like, why didn't she get nominated?
Oh, that's why she'll never get nominated.
I know. So my biggest political winner of 2020, Joe DeRocco.
Wow.
So
that surprises me.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought it would. So you look back what happened in Dracut at the very beginning. So we were going through the town manager search, as you know. He was always pushing for Ann Vandal right from the very beginning. Let's even, why are we going through a search? Let's just put her in. And you had Jesse and Tony Ochinsky, Tammy Drisilaris. They were all saying, no, this is the process that we've always done. Let's follow the process. And we got through the process. A number of names were passed on to the Board of Selectmen for interviews. And that's when, of course, COVID hit, and so they kept being staggered. And Jesse was stalwart on saying, "We're going with the process." And within 48 hours, he flips. We're going to appoint Ann Vandal as our new town manager, and from there on in, I guess I would probably say it's been easy skating for Joe. So he was backing Allison Janest, a very good person. I like her very much. A political newcomer to Dracut. He backs her and she gets in. So now he has a solid corner. He's got himself and Jesse and Allison who will essentially create a voting block for him, which controls the Board of Selectmen. So I
You
think
sold me on that. I guess
so.
you
I think
sold
for
me.
those reasons, he becomes the winner of at least politics in Dracut. I mean, I won't say he's necessarily the king of Dracut at the moment, but it's hard to beat him.
Yeah. You sold me on that one.
Who do you think is the biggest political loser in Dracut,
In Dracut?
or nationally? We can
Well,
go
honestly,
nationally. We're
Donald
doing both.
Trump is the biggest loser to me because obviously he didn't win re-election, and we see what's going on now in the country, which is a shame. So, to me, that's a pretty easy one. I love Donald Trump, but unfortunately, this was not his year. 2020 was not his year, so I think he was the biggest loser this year.
I think by far, I'm going to give it to Joe Kennedy. That is the first time that Kennedy, to my knowledge, has ever lost in Massachusetts. So, you know what? I think that was a pretty big blow to their dynasty or their dictatorship, as I would call it. It's finally come to an end, and I think that was pretty big this year. So,
That had certainly surprised a lot of people. I have to admit, I was kind of surprised by myself that with the good looks of the Kennedy and the red hair and that
Spitting in his head, right?
that it didn't work out for him.
Right.
My biggest loser is in Dracut, Jesse Forcier, and I think it's outlined because of the reasons I had alluded to earlier, where he flipped. I think he was riding pretty high as chairman for a long time. He certainly garnered my respect as chairman until the point where he flipped, and then at that point it's like, what can you really trust him now? So I think he lost a lot by doing that. I think he lost a lot of support from a lot of supporters that he had. So now it's he's there. So I mean, to some degree, is he just a figurehead now for essentially the big winner of town? So that's who I had. Do you see any rising stars?
Rising stars. What do you think, Richard?
I don't know, or political-wise, maybe, I'm going to hate myself for saying this, maybe Joe Biden. I don't know, he's been in the game for a long, long time. I believe he ran for president a few times, I believe.
Yep.
He may have. He finally got it, so, I'm going to give it to him. Who knows? Maybe he won't be as bad as we all think he will be. Maybe he will be a president for everybody, so I'm going to give it to him,
And my vote would probably go to Allison Janess because she did very well in the selectmen's race, as you know, Phil. I think she got the most votes of any one of the selectmen, and she's playing politics very well. Just like if you want to be successful at Dracut politics, she's playing the game. So I think she would have my vote.
Well, you've stole my thunder.
Okay.
So I'll give it to Richard Salvio for a Dracut DATV rising star.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm flattered.
Last item. Oh, excuse me, I had two more. I'm not sure if we should do this one, though. Do you see anybody destined for oblivion?
Well, I think that, as I said earlier, Joe Biden is destined for oblivion. I think he's set up for failure. They have a plan. I think the Democratic Party has a plan. He'll be out. My estimation is about 6 months, maybe 8 months. So we'll see if I'm right, but that's my big prediction, and I think I see him destined for nothing but downhill because just you saw it when the little times he did speak on television. Sometimes he didn't know where he was, he didn't know where he was going. If you watched the behind-the-scenes stuff that was shown on YouTube, it was pretty comical. But I did feel bad for him because I don't think his mind is all there. So. Hopefully, I'm hoping for the best, but I think they have a plan for him.
This was pretty easy for me. My pick, I didn't like him at first at all. In fact, I hated him at first. Took a little while. he grew on me. Now I love the guy, Donald Trump. Unfortunately, I feel like if he does not concede to this election quickly, the left is just going to use that as their atomic bomb for the history books for the future. So, especially with what's happening tonight, I'm not blaming it on him, but I feel like his failure to kind of come out on live television and say something, I feel like that they're definitely going to be using that as fuel for the textbook. So,
thanks, Rich. We have a call.
We have a call.
John, are you on the line?
I am on the line. How are you tonight?
Good.
Very well.
What do you want to talk about tonight, John?
Well, a few of the topics you've been discussing. First of all, Gordy mentioned about the 25th Amendment being invoked against Biden. I think, if anything, the 25th Amendment should be used as soon as possible for Trump, just so he can do no more damage before the 20th of January. I don't understand the infatuation with Trump. The incitement today of his followers to storm the Capitol. If you want to talk someone that talks crazy when he gets on the air, it's Trump. I mean, Biden has his senior moments, but every time I think he can't stoop any lower, he does, and I just wonder what your infatuation with the guy is. I mean, I used to vote Republican all the time, and now he's ruined it for me. I think he's destroyed the Republican Party.
And that's what I was going to ask back to you, John. Do you think what he did today and over the past few months is going to really hurt the Republican Party?
Yeah, I think he's lit it on fire. I mean, I get into arguments with, I'm sure you know Mr. Bogue, who's on, he has a show on there.
Yep.
And I think both parties have been hijacked by the extremists, but I don't think Biden and Harris are part of it. I think they're actually moderates. I think that's the way they're going to govern. But I think the big, and one other point I wanted to mention was about the COVID. I don't see how the media is over-reporting something that has caused over 337,000 deaths in this country, and I know there are underlying medical conditions, and maybe some deaths have been reported as COVID that shouldn't. But this is a worldwide pandemic, not just in America. And if any story deserves covering, it's that. And I think Trump's handling of it is also a top story. I mean, here's a guy we have on tape with the Bob Woodward tape saying he knew how dangerous it was and that it was worse than the flu. And he came out and said, well, I didn't want to panic the country, which is garbage because you can still address it without panicking the people. He didn't want to upset Wall Street and hurt his chances of being elected, and that's why I think he came out and lied about it.
Those are valid points.
Oh, excellent. I mean, I think to get to one of the points, the Georgia runoff, I think to some degree that his campaigning for those two senators, Perdue and
may possibly hurt him, right?
I think so because he always led off. They stole the election from me.
Right.
So what do you know?
If he would have just ignored that, maybe.
I think if he would have concentrated on, hey, let's get these two people elected, then maybe it would have been different. I don't know.
What do you think that by doing all the stuff he's done in the past couple of months, what do you think that's going to do to the Republican Party? Do you think it's going to take years before that for them to recover?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, two trains of thought is that, oftentimes you just double down on it and you go even more at it, and you figure, well, if I didn't do it hard enough this time, then if I do it harder next time, then it'll work. Or you go the other way and you say, hey, you come to your, if you want to call it your old Jesus moment, and say, hey, I'm a drunk and I need help and let's get back on the wagon. So I mean, it has the ability to be both. I suppose it has the ability to bring in a third party, a third political party that may finally get some legs. I don't know. Do
you see, Richard, I know you're a big Republican. What do you think this does to the Republican Party?
Honestly, I genuinely don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. With everything the Democrats have been doing the past 4 years to Republicans and to conservatives across the country, I don't think that compares. I don't think the Republicans compare at all to any of that. And especially where most non-Republicans seem to blame Trump for all the Republican Party problems, I feel like when he unfortunately is gone, they kind of work on forming unity again between the parties. So I really don't see it being a
Do
problem.
you think we're going to see an independent surge in this country of, be it a Green Party, a Tea Party, an independent?
That's a good question. I wish there would be. And, oh, by the way, John, thank you for
Do you
calling.
mind if I step in and say something?
Yeah,
Sure.
good.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, when Richard mentioned about the Democrats blaming the Republicans, I don't think it's so much the party of Republicans anymore. I think it's become the party of Trump. And like
point.
I said, since 1984, I have voted Republican in every presidential election. A couple times I wrote in names, but they were Republicans, even in 2016. And I tell you right now, I can't see myself voting Republican based on who's in there now in the next decade. And also, I want to say about Richard. He congratulations on his show, and I think that it's great that we have young people in this country interested in the political movements.
Well,
He reminds me of myself at his age. But no, look at my hero. Believe it or not, used to be Rush Limbaugh, and he got me interested in politics. I look back and I shake my head at some of the things that I used to agree with him on, because I have moderated over the years. And if we do get an independent party, I'd like to see that. And I'm not blaming Democrats or Republicans, but like I said, I think extremism has infiltrated both parties, and I'd like to see someone who is moderate to say, look, there's nothing wrong with sitting on the fence. It gives you a better look at both yards. You can pick and choose what you like from both parties,
Right.
which I think is the reasonable, sane thing to do. And just someone that has a little bit of common sense instead of taking it to either the extreme right or the extreme left.
All right. Well, thanks, John. We appreciate
Thank
your
you,
call.
guys.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
watching.
All right.
Well
Have a good
said.
night.
So, but politically, as you know, sitting on the fence, you can get hit by both sides.
Right.
And that's what usually happens.
But
And that's
I-
why people get off the fence.
Right, but I agree with him because, usually when a bill comes along, they almost twist your arm to say you're a Democrat, you have to
Yeah,
vote this
yeah.
way, or you're a Republican, you have to vote this way. And I think he makes a good point about the Trumpism.
Yeah.
I think when Trump first came out, there was a huge wave and huge support for Trump. But I think he went, honestly, and I like Trump, I'm a Trump guy, I think he went a little crazy towards the end there. And, when you lose, it's just like, everyone says when you lose, you play a game, you lose gracefully, you don't, and if there is that much deceit and there's that much cheating, just provide the proof. And, he is the president, maybe he gets more information than the public, and maybe there's a reason he can't share that information for some reason. Like an alien conspiracy or something. But
Just one last thought on that. I mean, I have a number of Democrat friends, and I'll have lunch with them, and they'll say, "Can you believe what Trump said?" And they'll ramble off. And they say, "Well, I was just surprised that he would say that." And I always look at them and I'm saying, the only thing that surprises me is that you're still surprised by something he says, because he's going to say something outlandish. I mean, here's a man who subscribes to the Oscar Wilde form of advertisement. The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. So. For why anybody would be surprised at anything he says these days, just let it go.
So, Phil, the last thing we had is the 2021 prediction. You heard my prediction. I predicted that Kamala Harris will become president.
Yes. What do you predict for 2021?
The biggest prediction, I think that all this Black Lives Matter and unjust stuff, I think that's all going to go away. I think that's going to completely disappear this year. We're not going to hear anything more about that on the news. So, who knows? Just going to have to wait and see, I guess.
So my prediction goes national.
Okay.
I predict that Donald Trump will pardon Edward Snowden.
No, really?
And
Wow, that would surprise-
And Assange.
And Assange. Wow.
Both of them. He
That would
pardons
surprise.
both of them.
That would be
Because
that would
both
surprise
of
me.
them fought against the swamp. He's gonna give them a pardon.
I disagree, but we'll see what happens.
We'll
that
see.
would be interesting if he did do. Okay, so the last thing I have on the agenda, then hopefully we have a few minutes to talk about what's happening, the unrest that's happening at the Capitol. The Massachusetts legislature has nearly a 7% pay raise. And there's a reason for that, Phil. I think you know what the reason is. Can you explain it?
Yeah,
to me?
essentially, I believe it was a constitutional amendment that
was passed how long ago?
Good 20 years ago, I think.
So, yeah. That's what I was gonna
that
say.
essentially took the pay raises out of their hands, so they couldn't vote for the pay raises of the next year
Right.
or so. And it took it out of their hands and put it essentially tied to the median income of families.
Household income, correct.
Household of, so every 2 years it gets adjusted. Of course, everybody knows that incomes, for the most part, will rise.
Right.
Very seldom do they drop.
Right.
And so they know that they're assured of a pay raise without even voting for it. There is political fortitude and strengthening in the face of adversity.
So the legislators went from 66,000, just over 66,000, to 70,500. Do you think that's too much to pay, or is that too little?
I think we should pay them about the same that New Hampshire pays their representatives.
And what would that?
And I believe that's about $550 a year, plus traveling expenses.
Wow. Richard, what's your feedback on that? $70,000 a year.
70,000. Nobody says they don't do important work. They do some very important stuff for our state. But this year, with the pandemic going on and whatnot, I don't think it was appropriate to give them the raise this year. I definitely think they all should have copped out of that and maybe even donated their raise to the to some sort of COVID relief fund, which we all know that wouldn't happen. But I think that would have been nice to see this year. So I'm a little disappointed.
So here's my proposal.
Okay.
Do much like New Hampshire, and I won't take it down to $550 a year. Let's cut their legislative year in half so they become part-time, and just cut their salary in half, and they can keep $30,000 a year and go back to work.
I think you should propose a bill, Phil. All right, so we have about 5 minutes left in the show, and I did want to touch upon everything that's in the news right before we came on tonight. That some pro-Trump supporters attacked the Capitol. A few of them broke into the Capitol. I heard right before we came on, I was watching television. I guess the woman that was shot has been killed. She didn't make it through it. And there was a senator that came on. He was in lockdown. He was on the phone and said that he heard that she passed away. So our hearts go out to her. I think that's the only one that perished from this attack. But what do we take? Who do you think? You think it is Trump? The reason for that happening resides solely with Trump?
Well, I don't. So there's probably enough blame to go around for everybody, and I know I'm going to get attacked by everybody on this. I've probably unfollowed and unfriended a number of people because they're just all chiming on Facebook to be right and not to be kind. Right. Yes, Trump has some culpability in it. Do I think it's all him? No, honestly, I think there are anarchists that are involved that just want to see the world burn, and hey, here's an opportunity, and so they'll get in there and just cause havoc. You have Democrats that are calling for all sorts of stuff. As a matter of fact, I heard just before I came on, who knows if it's true or not, AOC is drafting a bill to impeach Trump. There's
2 weeks left.
2 weeks left, and you're gonna impeach him. It's like,
oh, goodness.
Again, it's just. Why are you surprised at the stuff that he does? Just ignore him.
I think they just need to send him to Mar-a-Lago. They'll play some golf for 2 weeks.
Just ignore him.
Richard, what are your thoughts?
When it comes to putting blame for Trump, I really don't put much at all, to him, and here's why. With all the Black Lives Matter stuff that's been going on this year, us conservatives have been told, don't blame, the protesters. It's a small group of them that are doing it, and not the mass of the protesters, which, I tend to agree with. I think it's a very fair point. So with this instance of the Trump supporters, breaking into the Capitol building, I'm going to judge it the same way. I think the ones who broke in, just like Phil said, were anarchists, So blaming Trump, I definitely think that they used him as a coy, to break into the Capitol building, but I definitely don't think it had too much to do with him and his policies at all. So,
and I kind of agree with you. I think a lot of the blame has to lay with the media, because we saw what happened back in Washington, right, when they took the so-called protesters created the chop zone, right? And no one went in. They said it's going to be the summer of love. The mayor, this is going to be the summer of love, and they let those people
Oh man.
take that area of 3-4 city blocks, whatever it was. And, you know, everyone thought it was, oh, this is great. This is how people show that, you know, they're protesting and people listen to them. But if you talk to the people that actually lived in that area, they weren't too happy.
Oh.
So I think that, you know, with that constantly on the media, constantly showing all of these protests, and I think it was on CNN, they said, oh, this is a peaceful protest, and the buildings were burning behind them.
and
I think now people think that they can go do that, and they think it's okay because it's on TV.
So I mean, I had been working most of the day, and I check into Facebook occasionally, you know, to provide a gap in thinking and, you know, get mindless busy work. And that was probably the first response I had to somebody who was posting about, I can't believe what's happening in Washington. They kind of described it. And I said, well, it sounds like it's a fiery protest that's mostly peaceful.
Right.
I mean, essentially quoting what they said on CNN. And then, of course, I decided to tune into to find out what was going on. And I was just dumbfounded by what was going on.
Yeah. It escalated very, very quickly. I was surprised.
Well, guys, that's it for the show.
Wow,
Time
we
went fast.
filled up 58 minutes.
He did it. So hopefully, I think John will be with us next week. We're back on in 2 weeks. We appreciate you watching. Thanks, John, for calling in. It's great to have a debate with people that watch the show. And you know, when it's Wednesday and it's 7 o'clock, it's What's Happening, Dracut. Good night, Dracut.